Right. Howsh. Welcome to our intimate crew that's here live, but also just wanting to welcome anyone that is catching this recording. We had a good handful of people register to tune in for this conversation with Ricardo Baldonado about people of the forest and the beautiful work that y'all are doing down in the Brazilian rainforest with the indigenous group of the Yawanawá people and helping them to regenerate and restore their indigenous food sovereignty practices and bringing the wisdom of ecoforestry and what we're going to learn about today to this remarkable group of people who, in many ways, have influenced the culture that we're living in today. I'm wearing Yawanawá designs right now from Nawa. And these are our relatives, like the Yawanawá music has made its way into many pockets of our medicine and new age cultures and the way that their way of life really is influencing our world today. And their wisdom has made its way around the world. And it's really an honor to be teaming up as Inheritance Collective and our community. Already, we were wanting to support an initiative that revolved around food sovereignty and soil stewardship. And this month, we were open in our hearts and minds for which organization to team up with to contribute our efforts to. And then this beautiful opportunity appeared with Ricardo, who is a dear friend of mine, and Isis Indria, his beautiful wife, who's on the call here today, has been a sister and teacher for many years. And I've been able to have a front row seat in what Ricky has been creating over these past years with people of the forest and have always been really touched by this initiative. And then this month, the opportunity arose for us to have this amazing gift created through Ma Earth of a matching donation. And so this initiative to support people of the forest and then Ma Earth providing at least a match, if not more, based on the way that their organization works. And so we're gathered here together with basically like three powerful organizations with people of the forest, Ma Earth, and Inheritance Collective working in collaboration to support the effort of bringing agroforestry and regenerative food sovereignty to the Yawanawá. And so that being said, I just want to give a little brief opening and say thank you, Ricky, for your time, for coming on here to share more about this initiative and what inspired it in the first place. And now you've gone down to the Amazon, I think 2 or 3 times and brought this wisdom there, and looking forward to hear more about that experience and what the next steps are and where this fundraising effort is going to be directed so that we can be able to celebrate that with you. So again, thank you for your devotion and your service and for taking the time to come on here today. I'm very much looking forward to hear more about this project.
Thank you so much, Roxy. Thank you. And to the Inheritance Collective. And yeah, I just want to first say thank you to the creator for this new day and this opportunity to bring us together, and also the opportunity to be a part of Ma Earth Foundation funding platform. It's an incredible organization. They do something called quadratic matching. So them along with three other organizations have like $1 million pool, and this $1 million pool gets allocated to about 100 selected regenerative projects worldwide. There was about 800 applicants, and so we were one of the hundreds that were selected. And it's really community powered. So they empower each organization to crowdfund, and what matters the most is the number of donors. For example, if there's 20 donors to give $10 each, that's $200. That is more rewarding for matching funds than if four donors gave $50 each, which is $200. So that really gives a lot of importance to the number of donors, which is so cool because it just gives this excitement in the project, gave us like umph and give this excitement to share what we're doing again and to get it out there. And There's just been so many supportive people with networks to share our project, like Inheritance Collective. So thank you, Roxy, for being supportive, through prayer and also sharing people of the forest and our work here today and on your platforms. So it's wonderful to be here. I just wanted to give a bit of an introduction of people of the forest, what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing. And it really all starts from a prayer. This whole organization started from a prayer. It's founded by myself and a good brother of mine, Timo Granzotti. We are very close brothers. We've lived together, and he holds the position of the ecology agroforestry. He's an expert in design. He works at the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center. And then myself, my focus is more on spiritual ecology. And really, in order to transform the external world, the environments, you really have to transform the internal world of yourself. So that's kind of the focus of spiritual ecology, how we can value the earth as we value ourselves. And when we value the earth as ourselves, then there's motivation, inspiration to want to take action, apply ourselves, the way we conduct ourselves to be impactful to the earth and all the living beings a part of this planet. And so the Amazon, this has been a huge prayer, I think, for many people. We all share like about the Amazon. We want the Amazon to be thriving. And the reasons, the reasons are the Amazon is so important for global climate stabilization. It it produces like a quarter of the world's oxygen. It has a quarter of the world's fresh water, and it's a huge biodiversity hotspot. And because of the Amazon, we have larger hydrological cycles. So that means the rain cycles that we have up in the northern hemisphere of the planet is because of the Amazon rainforest. And so we give a lot of gratitude for the rain that comes down here in California because of the Amazon. And so weather patterns they come from the forest. And so it's really important that we safeguard, preserve, protect, and take care of our rainforest. And it's symbolic to all the forests around the world, all the ecosystems around the world of the importance. And sadly, this extractive mindset that is part of some human brain in corporations has created a lot of deforestation. And we've lost about 20% of the Amazon in deforesting, and that's really intense. There's theories by environmental scientists that if we reach 25%, that can cause like a snowball effect where it'll just start degrading in on itself and goes towards more desertification. So it can become a desert. So we could lose how the forest takes care of itself and it can kind of implode on itself. So there's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of people out there that are doing policy, they're doing territorial allocations for the indigenous people. There's people that are using technologies, there's people that are wanting to buy land to preserve it. And people of the forest, we see that the solution is within the problem. It is the caretakers of the forest. This is how it's been designed for millennia. There's over 400 indigenous tribes or peoples that live in the Amazon, and they have taken care of the Amazon for so long. There's even theories that it's planted. We have looked at this practice called terra preta, where they find like 4 feet of this black, fertile soil. And that's because they use a practice of using charcoal and layering it way down. So we can see from 4 feet that they have been caring for this garden for like thousands and thousands of years. And the way that plants are dispersed around, it's like It was like an overgrown food forest. So the theory that the Amazon was actually planted by ancestors way thousands of years ago, and then it's been tended to for its ecosystem and habitats to thrive is really remarkable. There's also an example in California where when the pilgrims came over here, they're like, wow, look at this God's garden just for us. And it wasn't because God just made this beautiful garden. It was because there was over 70 diverse tribes in California that were out there with their digging sticks and spreading wildflowers and taking care of a habitat for springs to run, for animals to graze, for the birds, for everything to be health. They used fire for the health of the ecosystem. And it's because they tended the forests and the valleys and the water and everything, these original people that created like a habitat where they could bring food into their lives. And so it's from the people and an ecosystem together. People and nature are inseparable. And it's really interesting because I remember in school, I would see this, this web of nature, like there's predators and preys, this eats that and da da da. But humans were not a part of this web of life. And so when we're younger, even in our education, it was like nature is separate from us. Nature is this other aspect that we are living amongst. And in the original people and the indigenous people, we are so much a part of the ecosystem. We are just as much as an animal as every animal. And we can be guardians and we can be caretakers. So, by this principle, we see that within the problem of the Amazon being deforested, there's from cattle ranchers, failure in policy, and illegal mining is what's really causing the most detrimental effects on the Amazon. That the solution is actually within the indigenous people because that's the way the Amazon was always cared for. So we see and we live by a principle that the people and the forest are one living system. And unfortunately, the indigenous people have been interfered with from colonialization through the rubber tapping industry, which ignited over in World War I, where they sent out people to pretty much tap rubber for materials and everything. And they enslaved indigenous folks. And so, where the Yawanawas are from in Acre, Brazil, they're really interfered by this rubber tapping industry and also the missionaries. So they were told to not practice their traditional ways, to not speak their language. They gave them a Christian name and they were set out to work. And so this was very detrimental for a lot of tribes, but for the Yawanawas, they were reduced to less than like 100 people. And once the rubber tapping industry left, there was this whole revival of their culture, their language, and their traditional medicine ways. And there was about three elders that really revised the culture and the language. They drank their medicine and they carried on, and they've been in this like resurrection, like a phoenix story to bring their tribe's number to like 1,700 now. And they have an area in Acre, Brazil, that's about 500,000 acres. This is the Gregorio River. It's the Gregorio Indigenous Territory. They share this with a few other indigenous peoples. And so they have this land that they are tending to. There's about 17 villages along this Gregorio River that is all of the Yawanawas. And we work with a village called Mattoon and the family there. There's about over 200 that just live in Mattoon. And Mattoon is such a beautiful place. Mattoon family, there's a lot of spirituality and beautiful culture and knowledge of the forest and their medicine and everything that they do there. And we became in close relationships. And this is a really important aspect of our organization working with the Yawanawá is the relation. It's really important to have that. So it's not just this transaction. And we don't want to impose anything. We don't want to bring in foreign concepts. We really want to assist them in their project. They want to grow food. They want food sovereignty. They want food security. And when we met them, they were already trying to grow food, but they were trying to grow food in big ag commercial style. So because they're traditionally were like semi-nomadic. They would live in a place of the forest for like 5, 7 years, and then they would relocate and it would just naturally regenerate. But then they became sedimentary people. So they have one place that they stay. And so they wanted to start farming. And they've been facing challenges because of climate change. Their hunt is being further out, so less game. That's one of their main food sources is by hunting, and also the waters has been dwindling. So then the fish population has been dwindling, which is another main source of their food is the fish. And so because of this, they wanted to start growing food. You know, before they were more harvesting from the forest, right, and then moving around and allowing it to regenerate. And the forest always provided everything for them, and so now they're coming to a place where there's less of what the forest gives, and so they want to grow food. And this wasn't a normal practice for them. So they were tilling and planting seeds, and they'd get one harvest. And by the second and third harvest, the food wasn't coming out so well. And so that's when we met them. And I had it all started actually from a ceremony. It all started from a prayer. Me and my partner Timo, we formed this organization with the wishes and desires to help indigenous communities and restore forests. And so this was our flagship project. And it came from a ceremony where the cacique or the chief of Matum came over to Nevada City and he was sharing his medicine ways. And in that ceremony, it was like a voice of the forest was like, you can help. I was like, okay. And I just started seeing plants and food. And I was like, oh, okay, okay. And then after the ceremony, I was like, I talked to the organizer, which is a good friend of ours, Kurt. I was like, set me up a meeting with the chief. I want to talk with them. And so we ended up meeting. We talked for like 2 hours where I got to hear all the challenges that they were facing in their villages. The first time in 20 years, they started seeing diabetes and cancers, and they never used to have these problems. And it's because of the food that they bring in from the city that is very low quality. It's not their natural diet, of eating from the forest. And so they want to grow their food. And he was explaining to me how, the food production is not really coming out right. And so then I shared with him what we could do, regenerative methods. And so that's how it started. And it started with me, Timo, and Kurt. I charged a credit card and I flew down. We flew down, three of us, down to Matum. It was the craziest trip. It takes like 3 days to get out there, a bunch of flights, and getting supplies, 3 hour taxi ride from Cruzeiro do Sul to São Vicente and hopping on a boat and going up 8 hours. The first time we went up there, we started our journey and like 6 hours was in the daylight and 2 hours was in the nighttime. It was like it was it was a cultural like shock for me, to have this experience. And at that time the river was really low, so there were sometimes we had to get out of the boat and push the boats across and of the shallow ends and get back and going. So we made it to the village at uh, kind of when it was dark out, and we were there for like 7 days to just do a site assessment. And site assessment looks at the land and counsel with the people, and that's where we began. We wanted to counsel with them, hear what type of food they want to just to grow, what they want to do, what their dreams, what their visions are for their people, and how they want to interact with their land. And that's how it all began. And that was in 2023 when we did our first site assessment. And it took us about a year and a half to get all our organization dialed. We became a 501c3. We are currently have 501c3 status and fiscal sponsorship in two countries, here in USA and one in Brazil. It's quite difficult to bring resources from USA to Brazil. It's one of the harder countries. And so our dear friend Ian, who founded Impact Not a Bank, makes this possible. He makes it possible for about 70 international organizations to be able to operate and do their impact work in Brazil. And he makes that possible. So we came in alliance with him, in partnership with him, and we found a good friend, Joao, who is also an ecologist. He studied syntropic agroforestry with Ernst Gosch, and he's been in Brazil from Rio de Janeiro and doing all this work. So we brought him on board with the team so we could have some Brazilian local ecologists join forces. So our plan was, we'll go down as a big team, do big pushes, share education and training. And then when the US folks, when we come back, then someone in Brazil can go every 3 months to continue maintaining the education and monitoring the system that we are implementing down there. So once we got everything together, we returned in 2025 in July, and we started with the soil. We started from the foundation of what it takes to do regenerative farming. And we did a whole intensive. We were there for like 10 days with about 12 Yawanawá younger men. And we started with the soil and showed how to do a layering. And the system that we are implementing is kind of adapted from syntropic agroforestry, where you do rows of diverse planting. And then in between those rows, there's alleyways where you can plant your perennials. So we started with the soil and showed how to layer to create healthy soil, and bringing forest-made compost. It's called pau. They even have a word for it, pau, and we layer it with that, with ash, and we put leaves and put banana stalks, and then cut up woods on the side, and then that all gets like broken down with mulch, and it gets broken down and becomes this really fertile soil. It takes about 3 months, and then so we returned in November and planted about 600 fruit trees and thousands of ancestral seeds. And we created a living classroom, which was a 10,000 square foot agroforestry plot. And this is our learning grounds. This is our living classroom where we continue with the Yawanawas. There's like 9 of them that are youth. And we started with a small team, and then in November it kind of grew and more people got involved. And in November it was so satisfying because we saw like the whole community kind of perk up and was like, what are you guys doing? And they wanted to get involved. And we shared from a design perspective, a very high education of agroforestry, and then also simple methods of just like how to plant a banana in a new way. And with simple methods, they ran with it and just started planting and expanding all over their land. And so we felt so blessed the way that the community comes together and receiving this education, and then also how we're learning with them. And it's a continual counsel to see what we can do better, solving problems, continuing forward, bringing people together, and continuing with the goal of completely self-sustaining with foods. So that is an introductory of people of the forest and what we're up to and where we're going with this. Um, Another beautiful thing about this project is we love to storytell. So we have like a short documentary series that is coming out. We have videos that is already released on YouTube, and it gives a platform for the indigenous voices. You know, and from the spiritual ecology perspective, like how do we regenerate lands? How do we heal habitats? How do we reforest degraded forests? And there's this saying that I learned from Brock Dahlman at my permaculture design course, and it really stuck with me. He said that restoring ecosystems is the easy part. We have that knowledge. We can do that anywhere. We can make springs return. We can make grasses grow, forests thrive. I mean, we have all the knowledge, practice, and implementation to restore ecosystems. The real work is restoring the ego systems. And it's really like the humanity's test is how we can unify, get past our differences, and agree on a common goal of restoration. So that's where spiritual ecology is really important. We have to value ourselves as much as we value this earth, to want to have the morality, the ethics, the feeling that I want this earth to thrive for the future of our children. And I want to work with people, set down our differences, and come to a common grounds of planting trees, restoring soils. So this is something very beautiful for the Yawanawá because their whole work is around transformation, their spiritual work. They are a voice for the forest. They've been traveling and doing tour around the world, in Europe and USA, all over, to share their medicine, to share their practices, their culture, their spirituality, which I see really helps individuals have a direction. They get past some of the nonsense of our past, or bad, traumas or patterns that are not serving us, and clearing that out of the way so that we can have a clear direction and a clear understanding of who we are. And so their healing work, their spirituality work is, it's just so beautiful to be a part of it, to pray along with them and see how they're going out in the world wanting to help people, to serve people, to bring people back to their truest nature, their understanding of themselves, to be healthy on all levels, mentally, physically, and emotionally. So our videos from this story, it's yes, food security, but then it gives a platform of the transformation that is also needed upon this earth for everybody, for communities to come together. And it's been really eye-opening. I am learning so much from this endeavor. Thinking to just plant a tree is turning into how Yawanawá, Julia said, is planting seeds of consciousness. So it's not just planting trees and food, but it's really planting seeds of consciousness. And so it's been a beautiful, beautiful experience and a lot of work, so much work of organizing and bringing everything together. And just so grateful for the people that also share this similar calling. I believe the forest is kind of reaching out in all her different ways, touching upon people to say, "Come together. We have a serious problem that is happening now and is ahead of us. But if we come together, we can make a difference. We can make a change. We can restore habitat, and we can restore our own selves to be a part of a beautiful world." Yeah.
So good to hear all of this, Ricky. Can you hear me okay over the pouring rain? Awesome. Of course, you start talking about the rainforest, and then the skies just opened. This is really auspicious that we're having this conversation today. Right before the call, we returned here to our home in Ojochal, Costa Rica at Yakumama Eco Village, where we drove like an hour and a half down the road to meet with the Baruka, the indigenous grandmother here, and just like hold council and continue the relationship and understand how we can be in support and into the as we got into the conversation and we were understanding what they needed, what was revealed was that they don't even have water. And like that's the reality that they're facing on their ancestral land is that they have to go and find water and bring it to their home. They don't have electricity, like the most essential pieces of their foundation to life is not available to them. And I just am seeing the mirroring of like, this indigenous group that has generously brought its wisdom to the world. Speaking of the Yawanawá, they don't have access to that most essential thing, which is clean food. And so much so that they're having to bring food 8 hours on a boat that is ultimately making them sick and dealing with diseases that they've never faced before. And I was noticing just in the experience today of the part of me that was thinking like, oh man, like I have such a long list of things that I need to be doing. And like, it could be so much easier to not make that journey in some sense, right? Like it could be easier maybe for your life, Ricky, to not travel to the other side of the planet and spend 3 days to make it to a village to go get your hands dirty and work with these people. But what also came through in this conversation with Abuela Ana today was she was like, the prayer is one thing and it's beautiful and it's needed, but then the action with the prayer is what is really needed right now. And what is the action that we're going to take together? And I just really want to commend you for taking the action, for like feeling the prayer and then having the inclination to act upon it and to acknowledge that the generosity of the Yawanawá is touching the hearts and minds of many and bringing great transformation. And with that, I just feel called to speak to that there's a responsibility for reciprocity and a kind of reciprocity that goes beyond like paying for a ceremony, but actually having the curiosity like you did and the courage to sit down with the cacique, the chief of the people, and ask like, what do you need? And here's the skill set I have, and to actually deepen that relationship and then go way out of your way, leaving your wife and your son and your community and your family and your comforts and traveling across the world to be in service to a people that are ultimately in service to all of us. And I just really feel like that's such important work for us to do right now. And then this piece that I've heard you speak of multiple times now of like ecology includes the human part of our ecosystem. And I really am such a fan of this perspective of like rewriting humanity into the story of environment rather than like there's humans and then there's the rest of nature. And that actually we can have a beautiful and beneficial role in stewarding this life. So I'm super inspired and excited to be a part of this work and to have our community backing it up. And I guess my next question would just be like, what are you excited about moving forward? Like, when do you plan to go back? What are ways that we as a collective can continue to support? Like, obviously, we're in this 24-hour window right now with the possibility of Ma Earth and the matching funds. But even moving forward beyond that, like what is the call to action? That if we're aligned with this prayer and we want to support people of the forest and support the Yawanawá and this beautiful initiative, what can we do to be in solidarity with you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Roxy. Yeah, I mean, the obvious thing is, of course, resources. We're needing resources to travel down and implement. But then we've also learned that we didn't meet our goals of accumulating the funds that we needed to going down. And so in July, when we were supposed to go down, we decided to reserve the funds that we had to allocate them towards what was really needed for the success of the project. They needed some equipment. They needed some chainsaws and some weed whackers. So we shifted without me and Timo going down. We just had our Brazilian ecologist and our filmographer to go down and to continue with the education. And then we allocated some of those funds to get some equipment. And the next part of this phase is that we don't want um, this project with the Yawanawá to be dependent on a U.S. organization. We saw that way before. So how do we create independence for them to have the success of feeding themselves? So the first goal is they can feed themselves completely. And so having ecologist partners going down and doing the work is, it doesn't cost as much. And so our next phase is that we're creating a scholarship program for at least 9 of the Yawanawá trainees. We really go by a model called, like training the trainers, right? So they are going to become the new trainers. And so we are creating a scholarship fund to send them to specialized schools in Bahia and then forming those relationships with those teachers. So possibly those teachers could also go to Matum and help continue by implementing, agroforestry. And then and then they become the trainers. They become the ones of the knowledge and can help other people. And so really this is a model that we're creating. We're creating a model in Matum that can be replicated and shared across the bioregions. It'll first go along all of the Gregoria rivers. It'll create seed exchanges, and that's already been happening. So nurseries and seed exchange, so they can help. Some communities will grow one type of food, and another will grow another, and then they exchange those seeds. And then from there, it can get expanded out into the Amazon. So that is our trajectory for the Yawanawá project, is to have these individuals be the initiative trainers, to be the educators eventually, so that they're a share. So our next focus is to send them to schools and continue that way. And then for people of the forest, we also want our own independence and not just be grant dependent and always needing to ask the community for donations. So we're creating within our infrastructure, we will also be sharing. We have like webinars coming out and educational courses and workshops and retreats. We plan on doing an agroforestry retreat. We'll go down to Matum, and people that want to take that long journey with us and be a part of putting trees in the ground and then drinking some medicine and having a cultural experience that's going to be offered. And we'll be doing some other retreats locally too in California. So in that way we can raise, be abundant and be independent in our organization. So then we can allocate funds that we create over to the project for the charitable causes. And so we are looking for, collaborators, whether it is someone who has a fund, that's the obvious thing, but also people to just share the story, people that have a network and they want to share this story, and the stories that get out, not just food security, but the stories that come from the indigenous people that give us something beautiful about ourselves in this Mother Earth, that we're not separate from nature like you're sharing, that we are also part of it. And, by sharing people, the forest, and the storytelling, then I believe that more people whether they join people of the forest in the impact endeavors that we want to continue with, or just wakes them up to want to get out into the world and join some kind of regenerative project. It's the amount of time that we have, we're capable of doing so much. And so, how can we just spread the message to communities to come together and to find that hope, to find the faith that we actually have the abilities to make a beautiful future for our children? Sometimes there's despair and there's feelings of like there that we can't do it, like there's not enough time, or there's not enough anything. There's like scarce, and I really truly believe that's a fiction, and we can really tell a story that no, we have what it takes. We have people, and it's just to organize and bring us together to be a part of a regenerative movement, whether it's with people of the forest or whether it's with Inheritance Collective, with it. There's so many organizations out there. There's so many places that are wanting to do this work, and how we can just be on that current of consciousness to speak those good stories, to be uplifting, to there's education, and there's sciences that helps fortify us in our beliefs of like, oh yeah, we can rehabilitate ourselves, we can rehabilitate our minds, we can rehabilitate the forest and environment, we can have clean water. It's totally possible. Whether there's people that are working in legislation, whether there's people working in solar, whether there's people working in digging wells, like you said, the community needs wells. It's how do we network all together to bring knowledge, resources to where it needs to go, and to be on that unified level is where I truly believe humanity um, needs to reach. We need to do it. We are doing it.
Amazing. Well, as we come in for a landing here, I would like, it's a very simple question, but I realize like even though you've explained the process of the rows and like what you're doing in Mutum, if you could just define actually what agroforestry is in a way that then I can repeat it and speak to other people about it, I would love to understand this idea, this concept and approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess if you look at monocropping, if you understand monocropping, it's like a cornfield that is just corn. And when it's just corn, it's more receptive to if it's a concentrated plant and food, then it can have a concentrated problem like pests, disease can affect that. And so then they use pesticides, fungicides, different means to try and mitigate those problems. So in nature, there is not a concentrated of one corn, right? It's diverse. And so diversity is one of the most important principles in agroforestry and also in permaculture. That through diversity, they take care of things. One can provide, like one plant can provide nitrogen. One plant is not receptive to getting attacked by bugs. Another is attracting certain bugs that'll eat the bad bugs. And so by through diverse planting, you're creating an ecosystem of what naturally is in the forest. So really the forest and how biodiverse it is, it takes care of itself. It's a habitat of all kinds of life living for it to just keep going, cycles and cycles. And so agroforestry is mimicking the forest in a controlled environment. So we plant, big trees in the row that is not to give food, but is to give nitrogen and also like a cover crop, because in a forest, the leaves drop and creates ground cover where the mycelium and all the bugs underneath can do their work, and then creates a cover so it doesn't dry up. It's shaded. And so the soil health can be a reservoir of nutrients and life to feed all the plants. So you have these big trees in a row, and then in between those, you have smaller trees that can be the fruits. And then you have next to that, you'll have like different shrubs and grasses. And so all of it is a companion planting and it's mimicking the forest. And so in Syntropic Agroforestry is by Ernst Gosch. Termed this, he termed syntropic agroforestry. It's really specific to uh, the rainforest climate. And so that is what we're doing because it works in the Amazon, right? And so we do diverse rows, and then in between, then the soil gets cared for by all the slashing and dropping and cover cropping, and then you can grow your perennials. So you can grow your corn with the beans. You can grow your cassava and peanuts. And so this is kind of how agroforestry works on a level. It mimics the forest and it creates biodiversity. It creates a way where all materials are from the land. You don't have to bring in nutrients from outside because with diversity, it provides what others need. It's all relational. So just like a community, you have one skilled person as a carpenter, you have one skilled person as a cook, you have one that's really good with the children, and they all in a community, you all work together. So it functions well. And same as in agroforestry. There's all these different roles that each plant can do for each other. Yeah. And then our next phase two is from agroforestry, then we're going into aquaculture. So I forgot to mention that is aquaculture is, creating, fish ponds. So they want to raise fish because the rivers are dwindling with the population of fish. So if they can raise their own fish, then they can feed themselves and they can also share that food source throughout their communities. Yeah. And same with growing fish. You can have a fish pond and then you can bring out outside food to feed those fish. And then, the fish might have problems or sicknesses and diseases. So, same in aquaculture, you created diverse habitat, just like nature. You just mimic the way ponds, lakes are in nature. So you can have a healthy ecosystem for fish. And there is a technique where you plant fruit trees around the pond, and that fruit feeds frugivore fishes, and those fish eat the fruit. So you don't have to bring outside food. And then there's carnivore fishes that eat the frugivore fishes, and those are the ones that the humans can harvest to eat these massive fish that are coming out and can feed a bunch of people. So through designing a aquaculture system, and the way that water flows through the land and how it's going to flow through the lake and then flow out and feed gardens and, unite back with the river. This is all a design that is to be well considered, well planned out, and set forth so they can have fish and have their agroforestry system all running and thriving. Yeah.
I love so much the opportunity that this approach can teach us about community, as you mentioned,
Yes.
and the importance of diversity, of
Yes.
ages and races and skill set, all of it. Like we really are meant to live as nature, as part of nature, and as a reflection of it.
They
Super.
have a word. It's called mutrial in Portuguese, but the Yawanawas, they do their mutrial every Monday and Tuesday. The community all gets together and work together. I've heard Rasu, who's also a chief of Matum, him and Matsini take care of Matum, and they have this. It's like this clay bowl, and with a rod, then they make this sound, and it's a call. It's like a horn, and it calls all the people, and then Mutual starts, and they all work together. Monday and Tuesday, they all help each other out. It's really beautiful, and they eat together, and then they work together. So Montreal was a beautiful, beautiful thing that I saw, and I really saw the strength of the community and people coming together. That I was like, wow, I want to take this back home. To how do we strengthen our communities? How do we show up for one another? In Peru, they have this concept Aini, and also in Hawaii, they have this concept called aloha. It's that currency that runs through relations, how you can help one another out without anything wanting anything, but in trust and knowing that we're in community, that this person that I'm in relation with, is going to show up in my life somehow in some way. And there's this trusting flow of like currency, you know, you scratch someone's back, they're probably going to scratch yours. It's a type of vibe that we need to keep going and making it alive within our communities, you know?
I want to get myself one of those horns.
Yeah. Calling all the people.
Yeah, totally. Wow, super inspiring. Thank you so much, Ricky. This is awesome. Just also to reiterate, we're in the last 24 hours, I believe, right? Tomorrow, people can still donate, and then it will close at the end of tomorrow.
I
Is that
think
right?
tomorrow is the last day.
Okay.
Yeah, I think today
Yeah.
really is the last day,
Yeah.
and tomorrow they have a cutoff time that I don't know exactly when, but tomorrow the fundraising round ends, and then any donations that come in, whether if it's even $5, that'll be
Yeah.
matched and matched based on the amount we raise, but also the number of donors. And so far, we've had like over 100 and I think over 120 donors, which is incredible. I feel so grateful, so blessed. All these people sharing this same belief and support for this cause. It's really making it possible to bring resources to go towards scholarship, to go towards equipment, to go towards the education, and for the Yawanawá to bring food, um, to grow food, and then also for people of the forest so we can expand and use this model and to replicate it in other places.
Beautiful. Well, looking forward to stay on the pulse with people of the forest and hopefully getting myself down to Mutum and some of the Inheritance Collective community as well. I want to just recommend anybody that's tuning in here, watching the recording or live with us right now to follow people of the forest on social media. Check them out on YouTube, the documentaries that are coming out, the little short form content is exquisite, and I know there's much more to come, so you can pay attention to the storytelling and be able to be involved that way, and then also to leverage this moment of the matching funds. And even if you just give $5, or if you feel really activated and you want to spread the word, I sent out the link in the email that went with this registration, and so you have all the information to donate. And yeah, I mean, I know y'all have been at it already for a few years, but it still feels like this is just the beginning of a major movement, and there's miles to go. So stay present with us. And thank you, Ricky, for your time and your devotion. Love you.
Love you too. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a sweet evening.